Welcome to Making Sense with Steve. Today I'd like to discuss women's ability to have it all. The way I'm going to approach this is I'm going to look at the current plan that women are using to navigate life, and then I'm going to make my suggestions for alterations to that plan, which would greatly increase their ability to have it all, as they say. The current plan was birthed out of the feminist movement of the 60s. Now, before we go there, I did a search for images of feminists, and here are a few of the images that came up. And I ask you, do these people honestly look like somebody you should be taking life advice from? Feminism gave you nothing but lies. The first lie they sold you was to be a better woman, you have to be a man. Now just think about that for a bit and digest it. And just how much sense does that actually make, and why did women buy into it? And why do they still continue to buy into it? The next lie that they gave you was women weren't allowed to go to college. Well, this simply wasn't true. The women that went to college came from families that could afford for them to go to college. And they went to college for two reasons. One was to find a husband, and two was for a actual career. They weren't taking classes like gender studies and sociology. Here are four women. We have Justice Ginsburg. We have Hillary Clinton. We have Michelle Obama. And then a TV personality, Judge Judy. With the exception of Michelle Obama, all of these women went to college before this push from the 60s feminists that said women aren't allowed to go to college. And these are just four that I grabbed. The one thing all four of these women have in common is they all went to law school. So they spent their time in school pursuing an actual career. There's another item that these four have in common, which I'll bring up a little bit later. In fact, I'll reference it 2 times in the forward portions of this video. But this is where you've got this. Now, what feminism was about was money. It was never about women's rights. And you need to understand that. And I'm going to illustrate to you how it was about money. What they told you that women weren't allowed to go to college, well, what it was is all women could not go to college. And the reason they couldn't go to college was their family or the woman themselves had to have the money for them to go to college, to pay for it. So out of this came the student loan industry. And the student loan industry made money freely available to primarily women who wanted to go to college. What we have here is the student loan debt. As you can see, it's continuing to climb. Now, some of the data is the current U.S. student loan debt is an estimated $1.53 trillion. 1 in 4, 25% of Americans have student loan debt. The average student loan debt amount is $37,172, and the average student loan payment is $393 a month. 81% of the student loan debt is held by the federal government. The student loan debt is considered an accounts receivable. That makes it an asset. So what has happened is the federal government has taken that 81% that they have out there, and they've used it as collateral to borrow against. So for those of you that believe that your student loan debt is going to be forgiven, you can pretty much give that up. The government is actually wanting more people on the rolls of student loan debt. And so when you default and your interest rates go up, that adds to their asset, which adds to the ability for them to borrow money against it. Just don't believe that your student loan debt is going to be forgiven. It's simply not. For this very reason. And this is why, well, the main reason why it was pushed so hard to go to school. It was to create this student loan monster. That's something that we need to look at, and I'll be looking at it later on in this video. I just wanted to show you that the student loan debt is constantly going up, and that 81% of it is held by the U.S. government. They are not the nice, kind people that you thought they are. They're taking advantage of you. We have a problem in our colleges that goes beyond the student loan. Here are a few images of the girls that we sent to college on the left, and it's the very same girl on the right when she comes out of college. That's something that I believe needs to be addressed as well. So the way women basically follow things now is you've got to go to college, you've got to get an education, and you've got to get a degree, no matter how worthless a degree is. There was a woman who lived across the street from me. She was $60,000 in debt in student loans for an $18,000 a year job. Now, I may be incorrect, but I believe you can make more than $18,000 a year working at Walmart, and you don't need $60,000 in debt. Compounded on top of that, like most women that come out of college, she wasn't even working in the field that she went to college for. In comparison, back to the 4 women I cited earlier, they went to college with a purpose. I would arguably say, under most circumstances, any reasonable human being would find all 4 of them to be successful women. So then when they get out of college, they're told to get a job, support yourself, because you don't need no man. They get out of college, they get their own place, and this created a huge demand in the housing industry. Because now, instead of people coupling up and a man and a woman living under one roof, we're now in a situation as a society to where it's 2 households. So the construction industry greatly benefited from this financially. You can look at utility companies. You've got 2 households. That's double the utilities. The food industry. We all have a certain amount of waste in our homes. There is less waste in a home occupied by multiple people than there is in a home occupied by a single person. I also believe that living separately as a single person, the longer you live that way, the more ingrained you become in the way you want things to be in your house. This is for men and women. The ability to compromise goes away. Then what happens is comes the wall. And the wall for most women is 30. And this is when you're running out of time with fertility. See, because regardless of how much you say, well, I'm going to wait till I'm 35 to get married and then start having a family, well, that's just not reality. And it doesn't matter how many times you say it, it won't make it reality. And the very attitude of that says, well, I'll just go get a man off the shelf at the grocery store and then I'll have that piece in place. And you're hearing a lot of women in their 30s, they're complaining, they're blaming men, but what they're doing is they're complaining they can't find a man anywhere. And once she gets to be about mid-30, there's going to come this plan to start freezing eggs. I put this was at age 38. You have a 22% chance of having a baby after 1 retrieval. After 2 retrievals, that's 35%. And after 3, you have a combined of 52% possibility of having a child. Basically 50-50. This was the last age, the oldest age, with the probability chart of success. You have a 33% chance on the first transfer, 50% chance of a baby on the second transfer. Now, what does this translate into? If we jump over here, we have the average cost for one in vitro fertilization cycle is $12,000. Basic IVF can be as much as 15 or maybe as low as 10,000. It's rarely lower than that. These numbers do not include the cost of medications, which may be as low as $1,500 or as high as $3,000 per cycle. Down here a little bit lower, it says the average couple spent $19,234, and for each additional cycle, they spent just shy of $7,000, $69.55. If a couple goes through 3 cycles, it adds up to a little over $33,000 in out-of-pocket expenses. Women, I need you to understand, this is not making you more attractive. All you had to do was a different way. You got on a bad path, and now you're just making it worse. By the time this is said and done, you're going to be almost 40 years old, 25 years away from retirement, and the only thing you will have accumulated is debt, no wealth at all. And then they get into their 40s and they're complaining even more. You even have some women now in their 50s who are starting to speak out and to the younger women and say, look, this is not the right way to do it. You're going to spend your life miserable. And we've watched it as time has progressed that women are becoming more and more unhappy. And I believe the most unhappy group out there is women over 40 that are successful financially, single with no children. So money doesn't make them happy. Being single doesn't make them happy. No children doesn't make them happy. These are all lies that you were fed from feminism of the 60s. The other thing they told you to do is go out and be as promiscuous as you can be, because this will give you freedom and liberation. Well, my question to you would be, freedom and liberation from what? Freedom and liberation from men? Who are you being promiscuous with? On top of that, there's been studies done that have found that the more sexual partners that a female has, the less likely she is able to pair bond, which means you're going to have a higher rate of failure. We're watching right now when it comes to women. If he's got the wrong color vehicle, no, can't have that. If he's not this height, no, that's not good enough. Steve Harvey had a show where he had a woman on, and she was no raving beauty by any means. Personally, I would put her at slightly below average and overweight. She had a list that went on forever. Understand, this isn't a list to qualify a man. This is a list looking for a way to disqualify him. And she can't figure out why she's still single. But she wants a man, and she wants family, children.
Can't have six-pack abs, can't be too skinny, can't have a runner's physique, can't be stronger than me, can't be obsessed with sports, can't be a hunter, can't own a boat, can't be a gamer, can't be materialistic. Gluten-free, must respect a gluten-free diet, can't be too close to family and friends, must open doors for me, must be willing to move someplace warm, must love traveling, can't brag about traveling, maintain eye contact, can't be a party boy, can't be intimidated by me. Favorite season cannot be fall.
The other thing that takes place is in the vast majority of women that are asked, when they become pregnant, they no longer want to work and they want the husband to take care of everything as far as providing the finances for the household. Let's just say hypothetically, even if you got married at 33, 35, that was what was going to take place. You were going to take yourself out of the workforce, be supported by a man, your husband. What good is that college degree? What purpose does it serve? It serves no purpose. You also have your student loan debt, because the majority of women don't make enough money to even make the minimum payment on their student loan debt. Women, please understand, this is not an attractive package to a man. He has to take you on and all the debt that you have. You're not going to contribute financially to any of this debt you created. It really sounds like you're looking for a sucker. And this is the primary reason, I think, that men aren't marrying these women. Now, you can say there's cases here and cases there. The minority, not the majority. The primary reason men marry is for children. I've listened to women tell me that men want younger women because it makes them feel young. Yeah, let's pretend there's something wrong with the man. No, the reason men want younger women is for the number of fertile years available. Women have a tendency to look at this and say, well, there's something wrong with the men. Another lie that women were told, they bought into, is go to college and you're going to make all kinds of money. Get that degree and you'll come out and you'll be able to support yourself and take care of everything. Well, what we have in front of us from CNBC is the average income for women based on age. If you just look at it and start thinking about what your student loan debt is and the payment on that, and rent and a car and groceries and utilities, it becomes obvious that you cannot afford that debt that you have to pay for that low-paying job. You'll notice the highest paid women are 55 to 64 at $46,500 annually. That is nowhere near great money for anybody. You were told that this path would bring you great freedom, but what it actually brought you was slavery. You have this college debt, you're living alone. If you don't get up and go to that job in the morning, you won't have the money to pay for your rent. You'll be homeless. You won't have the money to pay for your utilities. You'll be sitting in the dark. You won't have the money for food. You'll be hungry. Now, I believe this path gave you slavery. It didn't give you freedom. You gave up your ability of choice. You now are forced to do. Now I think we'll flip over and we'll start looking at it from a potential solution to this problem that's plaguing women. First, I'll start out with a site, Jezebel, which quite an interesting name for those of you that are familiar with the Bible. The title says men's favorite ages are 20, 21, 22, and 23. Actually, 24 is in there also. A data dive by the co-founder of OkCupid. What you can see here is it's a man's age versus the age of the women who look best to him. We all know that men are visual, so this carries some weight. As we scroll down, it starts at the age 20. It goes down to the age of 50. And it starts with the age of 20. 20 is the predominantly popular age. Then 21, then 22, and then I think we've got two 23s and a 24 out there. Now, many women would say, I've heard many women say, men want younger women because it makes them feel young. That's simply not true. Men want younger women because of the available years of fertility. So this is something to keep in mind. At the age of 20, women, you have the largest pool of men available to you that find you attractive. Most men want a minimum of 2 children, and that is if those 2 children are sons. It is about carrying on his bloodline. If we just flip this, let's say when you come out of high school, you can go to college, but it needs to be something your family can afford. Do not take student loan debt to do it. If you have scholarships, great, but your focus needs to be on finding a husband. If you concentrate on finding that husband in your younger years, you won't have that large gap of living single where you become more and more difficult to deal with. You also won't have the student loan debt. Now, those 4 women I showed you earlier, Justice Ginsburg got married at 21. Judge Judy got married at 22. Both Michelle Obama and Hillary Clinton were married at 28. All 4 of these women were married before the age of 30. And again, all 4 of these women are arguably successful women. So let's say we approach it from that angle. You're married to your husband, and let's just hypothetically say you're 22. Depending on the age of the husband you choose, let's just say you choose one roughly your age, maybe a couple years older than you. He's not making great money, but the 2 of you learn how to make it work. And before long, you buy your first home, and you start having children. The number of children you decide to have is between you and him, but remember, he wants a minimum of 2 sons. let's say you have your last child by the age of 30. You're a stay-at-home mom, you're taking care of the children, and there are many things you can do to make it affordable on one income without having to have some ultra high dollar income. One, with what the programming is on television today, if I had small children, I wouldn't even have a television in my home. So there, you don't have any type of programming bills that go with it. Number two, I see so many small children walking around with cell phones. I think this is insanity. We all made it without a cell phone when we were children, not to mention the access that they have to inappropriate material that's out there. So there's more money you don't have to spend. I would pay cash for vehicles. I would not finance vehicles. I wouldn't finance anything other than your home. And if you can figure out a way to save enough cash to pay cash for the home, I'd pay cash for the home. So anyway, as we back up just a little bit, now you're raising your children. You had your last one at 30. So basically at 48, 49, right around the 50 range, your children are all out of the house. Your home's probably also getting pretty close to being paid for if you took a 30-year mortgage. Your husband's income has increased as this time has gone on. So now, without the children in the home, you have all this money available to you that was being spent on the children, which no longer has to be spent on the children. Personally, what I would do is I'd pay the house off first. Whatever balance was left on the house, which can't be very much, I'd pay it off. The next thing is, now if you want to go to college and get a degree, you are able to do it without any student loans. It's not a burden on your family. It's not taking time away, you trying to figure out how to balance school with children, with husband. Your husband's at work, you're going to college. You could also decide that at this point in your life, it's kind of pointless to go to college. It's your decision. That money could be used for traveling and seeing the world. Pretty much anything that you wanted to do. You could be stacking it away, which you should have been stacking money away for retirement anyway. You could be adding to your retirement and still have money to go do things. You could buy new vehicles instead of used ones. Pretty much anything you wanted. Remodel your house, things that you've wanted for years that you haven't had because the money just went somewhere else, and you have this available to you. Now is also a time where if you wanted to get a job, you could. There are several skills that would transfer across from being a stay-at-home mother. One of them that comes to mind would be inventory control. You had to maintain everything in the home, all the food, soap, shampoo, laundry detergent, anything that was required to keep the home running. You were responsible for keeping adequate supply. Another possible area would be management. You obviously have reasonable amount of people skills. You dealt with the children for 20 years. The last one that I can think of off the top of my head would be logistics. You were responsible for making sure everything got to where it needed to be at the correct time. As we sit and we think about it, your actual freedom comes from being married. When women choose to not marry, they're bound. They have to go to that job. You have the freedom to work if you want to or not work. All this time, you're partnered up with somebody and you're building personal wealth. This is actually how it used to be done. When it was done this way, women were far happier. They had their purpose and men had theirs. Feminism and the government weren't getting enough money, so they started taking things out of school. There was a class, home economics. There was another class, industrial arts. Home economics primarily attended by females, industrial arts primarily by males. When I was in high school, I took drafting, both mechanical and architectural. It's not enough to put out an architect or a mechanical engineer straight out of high school, but at least you had basic understanding of what it was. We had metal shop, we had wood shop, we had a career center, which basically had a whole bunch of different businesses, industries, where you could go and take classes. The classes were half a day long. Personally, I took auto body. You could come out of there, you could do it for 2 years. You could come out of there and you could walk into a starting position into whatever it was. They had a kitchen there, they had home construction. These guys would actually go out and build a house, high school students, and home economics. The females, males could take the course, and some did, but you learn the basics of cooking, the basics of balancing a checkbook, the basics of early child care. So when you came out of high school, you had all these basic skills that would allow you to be a wife and mother. These are basic skills that you're going to need as you go through life, whether you get married or not. You're going to eat. You need to know how to cook. You're going to be paying bills. You need to know how to balance a checkbook. The only skill that you don't need, and that's assuming you don't have any children, is the early child care. We had to get rid of that as a society, and we had to force both our males and our females down this college path, because this feeds this student loan monster. Right now, you come out of high school, you have no skills. I know people come out of high school, can't read a tape measure. This was basics. They have to go to a trade school and pay for post-high school education instead of becoming part of the community at a much younger age, becoming much more responsible. See, the earlier you start, the more you can build. There are a few things that I would tell women to avoid. I think the first one on the list is the foul mouth. No man finds a woman with a foul mouth attractive. Plain and simple. The next on the list would be tattoos. Same reasoning. Generally speaking, men do not find women with tattoos attractive. Third would be all the body piercings. Fourth would be the crazy hair colors, the blue, the green, the orange, the pink. When men see these things, they see them as mental issues. Given the fact that 25% of women are on some kind of drug for mental disorders, I would have to say the men are probably correct. I would definitely watch my weight. Do not become overweight. I'd definitely be very cautious with debt. I would stay away from social media. Social media will destroy your relationship. I've heard it all before. I just use it to keep up with family and friends. Well, you've got a phone, you can call them. You can send them a text message. You can send them an email. You can send them a regular letter. You can even go in person and see them. So what do you need social media for? I would stay away from the lines that women are using, like, I am the table. No, you're not the table. You didn't even build the table. The other one that I hear all the time, if you can't accept me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best. Well, give that one a try the next time you go for a job interview. See how well that works out for you. You should be giving your best to your spouse. The better wife you are, the better husband you will have. Another one I hear is, kill all men. And the feminist websites say this is just a joke. Well, men don't find it very funny, especially when there's a woman in Italian government that is doing her best to get a law passed making it mandatory to castrate all male-born children. Don't make the mistake of coming for our boys. I would spend as much effort into learning men and learning what it was to be a wife as you do anything else in your life. You should actually be spending more time doing it. It's the most important decision you'll make. The biggest disadvantage the majority of you have is you were raised by single mothers. You have no idea what a wife looks like because your mother wasn't a wife. You're going to have to find a way to overcome that. If it's going to cooking classes, if it's going to etiquette classes, whatever it is, charm school, you're going to have to find a way to overcome the disadvantage of not seeing what a wife is supposed to be. Give up the hatred for men. Honestly ask yourself, what has a man ever done to you other than try to make your life more comfortable? Do not become a baby mama. There are too many forms of birth control out there available to women. The greatest gift that you can give your husband, I said husband, not boyfriend or fiance, is your virginity. I've read plenty of opinions on why men don't want to sleep with virgins. Well, let me tell you, it has nothing to do with a lack of experience. These are men that know that all they're going to do is use you and throw you away. And they don't want to do that to a woman who still has her virginity. Undead Chronic on his videos. Up in the top left corner. No hymen, no diamond. And in the words of the immortal Kevin Samuels, marry before you carry. In any case, that's pretty much where that part of it stands. That will be the biggest detriment to you finding a husband. No man wants to pay to raise another man's child. You have a choice as you go through life, and this is pretty much the choice that you have, what's laid out in front of you. That's it for me. Y'all have a great day, and I'm out.